The moment the automatic doors of the emergency room slammed open hard enough to rattle the glass, everyone inside froze. A shadow filled the entrance, huge, trembling, and furious, and then the man stepped forward, nearly 7 feet tall, shoulders like a wall, fists clenched, eyes wild with pain and rage. Nurses backed away. A tray crashed to the floor. Someone shouted for security. But before anyone could react, the giant charged straight toward the nurses' station like a storm breaking loose, and the one person who stepped into his path was the newest nurse on staff, the one everyone thought wouldn't last a week. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet strength of people who are often underestimated, take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to the channel for more stories that remind us how powerful compassion can be. Your support truly makes a difference. The hospital had been chaotic long before the giant arrived. It was one of those nights where the waiting room overflowed, ambulances lined the bay, and the fluorescent lights seemed harsher than usual. Staff moved quickly but exhaustion clung to them like fog. Among them was Emily Carter, barely 3 weeks into her first job after nursing school. She was young, small-framed, and still carried the cautious uncertainty of someone who hadn't yet learned to hide her nerves. The senior nurses saw her as kind but fragile. The doctors considered her competent but inexperienced. More than once, someone had suggested she might be better suited to pediatrics than the intensity of emergency care. Emily heard those whispers, even when they were meant to be quiet, and each one chipped away at her confidence. Still, she showed up every shift determined to prove she belonged. Her life outside the hospital had prepared her in ways no one there understood. Years earlier, her younger brother had struggled with severe behavioral episodes tied to a neurological condition. When he lost control, he became unpredictable, sometimes frightening. Emily had been the one who learned how to calm him, how to read the subtle signs before an outburst, how to speak to him in ways that cut through the chaos in his mind. Those years had been exhausting and heartbreaking, but they had also shaped her into someone who understood that aggression often hid fear, and anger often masked pain. When the giant man stormed into the ER that night, most people saw only danger. His clothes were torn, his arm bleeding heavily, his breathing ragged and uneven. Security hesitated, unsure whether to intervene physically or wait for backup. The man's eyes darted wildly, scanning the room as though he expected someone to attack him. A doctor attempted to approach but quickly stepped back when the man swung his arm violently, knocking a clipboard across the floor. Panic spread through the staff like electricity. Someone whispered that he might be on drugs. Another guessed he was mentally unstable. No one moved closer. Emily felt her heart pounding, but something else stirred beneath the fear, a recognition she couldn't explain immediately. She noticed the way the man's pupils reacted to light, the uneven tremor in his hands, the way his movements seemed both aggressive and disoriented. It reminded her of her brother during severe neurological episodes. Instead of seeing a threat, she saw someone overwhelmed by his own body. Before she could overthink it, she stepped forward. The room seemed to hold its breath as the smallest nurse approached the largest patient anyone there had ever seen. Her colleagues wanted to stop her, but the moment passed too quickly. The giant turned toward her, muscles tightening as if preparing to strike. Yet Emily didn't flinch. She moved slowly, deliberately, keeping her posture open and non-threatening. Inside, fear surged through her veins, but she focused on the training she had learned the hard way at home years ago: calm voice, steady eye contact, controlled movements. She spoke softly, not commands, not warnings, just reassurance. She acknowledged his pain. She told him he was safe. She told him she was there to help. Something shifted almost instantly. The giant's breathing faltered. His shoulders dropped slightly. His eyes, still frantic, locked onto hers with confusion instead of rage. Emily noticed the subtle neurological cues she had suspected: possible seizure activity earlier, maybe a traumatic head injury. She gently guided his arm down, applying pressure to slow the bleeding while continuing to speak calmly. Within seconds, the man who had stormed in like a force of destruction was standing still, trembling, but no longer violent. Security remained ready, stunned by what they were witnessing. The senior doctor stepped forward cautiously, realizing the situation had changed completely. Emily didn't overpower the giant physically. She didn't use force or restraints. What she did was something far more powerful. She reached the frightened human beneath the chaos. Once he was stabilized on a gurney, the medical team moved quickly. Tests revealed the truth. He had suffered a head injury during a workplace accident earlier that evening, triggering neurological disorientation and severe pain that amplified his fear response. He wasn't dangerous by nature, he had simply been terrified, injured, and unable to process what was happening. Without Emily's intervention, the situation might have escalated into violence, injury, or even tragedy. As the adrenaline faded, Emily's hands began to shake. The weight of what had just happened hit her all at once. A senior nurse placed a hand on her shoulder, her expression no longer doubtful but deeply respectful. For the first time since she started working there, Emily felt seen, not as the rookie, not as the fragile new hire, but as someone who truly belonged. The giant, whose name was Marcus, recovered over the following days. When he fully regained awareness, he learned what had happened and asked repeatedly about the nurse who had helped him. He had only fragments of memory, fear, confusion, and one calm face telling him he was safe. When Emily finally visited his room, he struggled to express gratitude, overwhelmed by the realization that someone had treated him with compassion when he was at his worst. That moment stayed with her long after he was discharged. What changed most wasn't just Marcus's life, it was Emily's. Word of what she had done spread throughout the hospital. Doctors consulted her more often on behavioral cases. Nurses sought her perspective during tense situations. Her confidence grew, not from praise, but from knowing she had trusted her instincts and made a difference. She realized that strength didn't always look like authority or experience. Sometimes it looked like empathy in the face of fear. Months later, during another busy shift, Emily noticed a new trainee standing nervously near the nurse's station, overwhelmed just as she once had been. Instead of letting the girl struggle alone, Emily stepped beside her, offering guidance, reassurance, and quiet encouragement. It was a small moment, but it carried the same energy that had once saved a crisis, the belief that people are capable of more than others expect. If this story is touching your heart so far, please take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Your engagement helps these stories reach people who might need hope today. Special request: before we finish, comment the word compassion if you believe kindness can change someone's life, even in the most unexpected moments. The night the giant charged into the ER could have ended in chaos, injury, or fear. Instead, it became a reminder that courage isn't always loud, and heroes don't always look the way we imagine. Sometimes, a hero is simply someone willing to see humanity where others see danger, to step forward when everyone else steps back, and to offer calm when the world feels out of control. Near the end of her shift that night, Emily walked past the entrance where Marcus had first appeared. The doors opened and closed quietly now, just another ordinary moment in a long day. But for her, that spot would always represent the moment she stopped doubting herself. She understood that the qualities people once saw as weaknesses, her sensitivity, her patience, her empathy, were actually her greatest strengths. And somewhere out in the world, a man who had once been seen as a threat carried the memory of a stranger who treated him with dignity when he needed it most. If this story moved you, please take a second to like, comment, and share this video with someone you care about. Stories like this remind us that even small acts of understanding can create ripples far beyond what we can see. Because sometimes, all it takes to bring down a giant is compassion.